Hey traders, Raghee here. Welcome to Charts and Coffee. Happy Monday, everybody. Hope everyone had a great weekend, did something fun, got away from the charts for a little bit, and ready to do it again. Although it is a shortened week this week. We've got trading today and tomorrow, of course. Look, we've got a full trading session Wednesday, but you know there's going to be a large group of market participants just phoning it in. And then we've got, of course, Thanksgiving holiday, moving into a half-day session on Friday. So we really have a 2-day week. Wednesday, be careful. Again, I fully anticipate there being lower volume on Wednesday, or at least a little less attention being paid to the market. So the next 2 days could be fairly concentrated. Probably one of the main things looming over the market, though, is when are we going to get confirmation of who the next grand poobah of the Federal Reserve is going to be. And that's probably one of the things that is going to continue to sort of hover over the market. Not that Powell or Brainerd is going to be that different a philosophical approach, but for the most part, change is not usually good. The devil we know is better than the devil we don't. So, be prepared for the certainty that would accompany a shakeup in the hierarchy of the Federal Reserve, but that's pretty much what we've got going on. So great to see everybody. Awesome. Let's get into the questions, shall we? All right, kicking it off with, hey there, Victor. What do I think of INMD? Sure. All right, so taking a look at INMD, double green, gorgeous, love it. In terms of structure should always precede strategy. Also take a look. All right, here we go. Biden will nominate Jerome Powell for a second term. So there you go, done. One less thing to worry about. All right, so back to Victor's question. Again, Jerome Powell is going to be able to extend his tenure. Lyle Brainerd is going to be vice chair. So Williams, out. He was one of the lone academics on the of the Knights of the Round Table. So Lyle Brainerd is going to be the vice chair. All right. No shakeup there. In fact, the market just went whoop. If you take a look, hang on, I'll come right back to this. If you take a look at the S&P, for example, on a 5-minute, there it is. There's the announcement. So the market doesn't love Powell, and it's not that Brainerd was going to swoop in like a hawk. What we know is better than what we don't. All right, and that's it. So there's your market reaction. All right, back on over to INMD, great structure. So this is where, Victor, I would also mention, the fluency we all must have in this environment in terms of our individual stock picks, weighting within the passive investing universe. When I think of INMD, I believe this is an FFTY conversation. So you're very much going to be reliant on that attention that's coming from that IBD 50. But good structure. Just remember that if that's sort of the reason it's on the radar, one of the main reasons you've got a large group of participants focusing to the long side on this, just be aware who's controlling the narrative and what that audience is. But yeah, good stuff. All right. Sun River says another fabulous day coming up. I sure hope so. Last week was a little bumpy, probably last week and the end of November, as we're winding down, I'd say is the bumpiest personally. And I know for a lot of you, following some of the ideas that we've been focused on, probably the bumpiest since August. So if you're kind of thinking, wow, last week wiped me out emotionally, not financially, right? We take the paper cuts, but last week kind of really exhausted me. You're not alone. Not a lot of fun, but then I've got to take it within the scope of, July was pretty darn good. August, September, October were very good. End of November, I can't be mad at you. But we're seeing some of the stronger trends that have been very good to us for the last 30, 60, 90 days. Definitely take a little bit of a breather and a little bit of a rollover. Not a downtrend, but definitely breaking their respective uptrends. So I think we're going to have a fabulous day, Sun River Coatings. Just for sure, want to be really cautious. Don't want to go Russian and revenge mode this week, and probably play it pretty short term. One of the benefits of being an intraday trader is every day is a fabulous day because we get to start off flat. We get to start off with a clean slate, fresh eyes, and there's a lot of value to that. So we'll probably be doing some day trading these next couple of days. All right, gold is getting close to the wave. Good eye. We like the double green in gold. We like the pullback. This is one of the setups that I believe we sent out for the last trading day, the last week of the Finder Formula ETF class. And it was, we were looking at the GLD 170. So am I going to look at gold futures to do that? Yes. Now remember, you can trade gold futures, of course. MGC is the micro gold. And then as an ETF alternative, you've got GLD. So we are definitely not lacking for a choose your own adventure in that gold pullback buy. Absolutely. Debbie asked, when my entry trigger alert pings at the open, do I enter or wait till after 10? Debbie, great question. So let's say we've got that alert out there in gold, for example. The only time that I wait for the clearing range to finish is if I'm going to take my paper cut. So not for entries, not for targets, but for stops. So I will give my stop loss that time-based latitude of, you know what, we know we've got this very volatile 30 minutes. It is not necessarily indicative of what we're going to see the remainder of the morning or even the remainder of the day. And it's a very volatile back and forth. So I'll usually give my stop losses, right? I will say that I say trailing stops would probably fall within that window, but entries and profit targets, no. Great question. So it's really just giving me a little bit of time latitude around taking a loss during a time that I have found probabilistically, right? When we look at the sum of our career and the sum of our trades and the sum of our entries and exits, we see certain patterns arriving. One of the patterns that I found for me personally was that when I pulled a trade during the clearing, one of two things happened. One, at 10 o'clock, the market was back within my point of validity. That's ideal. And that does happen. Or two, and this is very valuable, I could have taken a smaller loss than the one I could have taken earlier in the clearing. Now, that isn't always going to happen. There is a third, but less frequently occurring possibility, and that is the loss is greater than. But I will tell you, if I'm looking at probabilities of those three, the last is usually the least occurring probability. So, great question. All right, next up, do I have any thoughts on Agario? I hope I'm saying your name right. On the Russell, on IWM. So if we're going to take a look at IWM, we're going to jump on over to the Russell. This is a double green. Dips are buyable. That means the dip on. So what would it look like a dip? November 18, November 19. Currently, this is not a dip. You might say, wait a minute, Rog, it's low. So dips really need two criteria. In the right zone, which arguably we're really not anymore, but in the right zone, and bearish momentum in the zone. So my thoughts on this, on IWM specifically, buy the dip is valid. Absolutely. Buy the dip is valid, right? Do I think crude oil, hey there, Tim? Do I think crude oil has hit a bottom? I don't know. I think what we have to remember is there a probability we have? I think the most honest thing anyone on this side of the mic can say is that we don't know. We just know that there might be a level from which there's volume, price-based support, whatever host of tools you use. Maybe there's a pattern. I think there's a pattern emerging here that could be interesting, Tim. So I don't know, but the pieces that would make me more inclined to think that this is potentially a bottom are in place. Lows, volume ledge, neutral environment, and this is looking like the beginning. This is shaping up pretty nicely as a minor low. So it's looking like it. It's looking like it. Remember, and I love that you asked about exhaustion versus a downtrend. We have four red grab candles, lower lows, but the trend that preceded the chop that we're in right now was up. So if we come back sometime next week and we have, say, 5 to 8 grab candles that are red in a row, then I might say, look, the pattern between propulsion dots and grab might be telling us that there's structure that is bearish that could front run the JT multi. So my patterns within propulsion and grab do have the ability to give me a more aggressive definition of what a downtrend would be. But I'm not there yet. So I have to go with exhaustion. Yeah, I have to go with exhaustion. So is there still validity for the USO or CL, which is really, you want to look at CL, Jimmy, but to your point, is USO still valid below 55? So the question is, what's valid below 55, right? That's the way that I would process it. So what I would say is the trend is no longer valid, right? Having broken this right here, these propulsion dots, having broken those propulsion dots, the trend is no longer valid. But the chop, right? You have this yellow JT multi. The chop, however, chop buy is valid. And so we're really not talking about validity using a moving average, because once we're no longer trending, the moving averages actually mean less. And that includes my wave. What means more in chop are things like our volume ledge. What means more in chop are things like our Darvis 3.0. It could be major psychological levels where we'll probably also see volume at those levels as well. So the 55 in the context of the structure that we're in now, no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Okay, so it's not really valid at this point. Okay, next up, how does steel, U.S. steel look for a long? Not great, but not invalid. So, in terms of what I would want to buy, we're north of, the best thing that I can say about this is that the candles that did emerge with pretty good consistency, although volatile, was the green. We're yellow on the JT multi, lower the trend criteria. We have blue grab candles now. The best thing that I could say about this is we're north of the 200. So what I would take another deeper look at this, Michael, and I would ask myself, either within the context of SLX or XME. You can also look at the XME. So either within the context of SLX or XME, the question becomes, are there any other stocks within that narrative that look better than X? Are there any stocks that are tethered to the narrative that clearly we're looking at when we look at X? Again, SLX, the steel ETF, and XME, which is the metals and mining ETF. Does anything look more bullish? And it may not, right? And it may not. So with that being said, and then the other thing I want to ask myself is, am I focusing on an individual stock that's in kind of a heavy tide? Is this boat going to really have to work overtime to move against this, I think, largely outgoing tide? And I say that when I look at SLX and XME. So XME might be a slightly better place to look in terms of individual stocks, some of which might have some relative outperformance to the upside. So SLX, not so much, the steel ETF, but what about the metals and mining ETF? Is there anything else that looks good? Does XME look better? Now, if you're looking for X to track with XME, I think you're in a good spot. I would say NUE would borderline look as good, maybe slightly better. Freeport McMoran, which I am in, all my cards on the table, I believe looks better. Take a look. So FCX looks good. X looks all right. It looks all right. We have NUE. Looks pretty good. MP looks pretty good. RS. The challenge here will be, do any of these individual stocks, apart from the XME, have good liquidity at the individual stock option level? So the options liquid. And liquid for me, sort of a line in the sand, is minimally 500 for myself. But if I'm looking at trades for the mastery, if I'm looking at trades for the rooms, I like to have at least 1,000, because I don't want us trading against each other. I don't want us creating this rising tide within the cost that we're doing to each other. So there's enough liquidity, and liquidity is a big deal to me. There's enough liquidity. We're not necessarily, trading against each other or increasing the price on each other. So that liquidity is a big deal, especially when there's going to be a lot of traders interested in a specific name at a specific level. That liquidity is really important. All right, next up is, let's see. Let's see, hit the snooze once too often? I'm not sure. I never hit the snooze button. In fact, I actually use an alarm. I use light. It's kind of hard to argue with light. Yes, I don't know. But yeah, nobody hit that snooze button. Oh my gosh, that's such a terrible habit to have, right? What do I think of Zim? No, it's a no thanks on that one. But and especially now, so Zim is tough because here it is trying to break out, but it's also a yellow non-trending JT multi, which means we're really thinking about oversold levels to buy from, not breakouts. So that one's tough. The breakout, if you did take it, I don't know whether you've engaged this or if you're waiting to, there's your breakout right there. 4 blue grab candles in a row. That's good stuff. But not now. Any thoughts on Vail? Austin, yeah, I mean, short it. If there's anything to be done, of all the things I could buy, if I'm looking for a long position, I'd rather it be in a market that's moving higher. If I'm looking at potential shorts, and there are some double reds in this market. Now remember, VALE probably is going to track really, really tightly with that downtrend we were talking about in SLX. So this is where the relative performance part of your watch list is so important. I don't want to buy SLX because it's low. That's actually, or I don't want to buy something that's double red because it's cheap, and I don't want to short something that's double green because it's too expensive. Those are usually the first words that begin a lousy trade. So are there shorts? Yes, and I think you've nailed one right there with part of the SLX and VALE, Austin. Yeah, I think that VALE is pretty darn good. Air conditioned gypsy gold today? Maybe. We'll see. It's getting close, right? It's getting warm. What are my feelings about UROY, Royalty Corp? I don't know what my feelings are. I know that we have pulled back pretty dramatically, more blue grab candles, a little bit more volatility. So this area here is buyable. I'd like to see it stay above the 55. That would be great. That's my thought there. The trend that preceded the chop, as you can tell, take a look. The trend that preceded the chop was up. So my bias is still bullish. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's what the structure and the candles are telling me. And then, I don't, in terms of uranium, I like URA. So URA, UROY, CCJ, these are all interesting. These are all interesting plays. I will tell you this. I have not played UROY personally. I've been pretty active in CCJ. I've been very active in URA. But UROY, terms of liquidity, I don't know that we have a lot. Do we have a lot of liquidity in UROY? So I would check the liquidity out. I'm actually just looking at this right now on the other screen. Yeah, it's very thin. So unless you're buying the underlying, I'd be really, really careful. Yeah, so this would have to be, I would say, buy the underlying because the options, yeah, the options are really thin. So think about maybe CCJ, but I'm with you. NC1, I'm with you on that narrative. We're long URA. I like CCJ. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. All right. So let's see. XLE is going to be in the same boat as crude oil. Same boat. Got to leave it alone for now. Got to leave it alone for now in terms of the overall movement lower. We want it to settle down. Somebody asked if we're seeing a bottoming pattern in crude. I think we are oversold, but until that crude oil bottoming pattern occurs, I need to be really cautious about what I'm going to do with OIH, which I put on the very, very bottom of the list. But XLE and XOP look pretty darn good. So be careful with those. And then we have a similar situation where, for example, natural gas is sunk down to that zone as well. All right, gang. Thanks as always for joining me for Charts and Coffee. Get those questions in early. I just kind of go down the list as we go through our 20-minute show. Thank you as always for your time. Thank you so much for getting those questions in. And if I missed your question, catch me in one of the rooms. I'll be in all the rooms tomorrow. I'm usually logged into the Mastery. Someone was asked, where am I usually? I'm usually in the Mastery, logged into the chat room, not on the mic, but logged into the chat room throughout the week between 9:30 and 4. And then the futures room, I have a schedule that's Tuesday morning open, Thursday morning open, and the Friday close. And then in the options room, I'm in there once a week, Tuesdays from 2 to 3 Eastern. Tomorrow, though, Tuesday, I'll be doing a part of the open. So you can also see me in the options room for an extra session tomorrow. All right. Thanks as always. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Same time, same station. Be good to each other.